If you missed the time for all ages and just came in now, we talked about being a wild chicken and breathing to find yourself. So let me begin with a testimony. My name is Louise, and I am a wild chicken. If there was a 12-step group for wild chickens, I would so be there. I need to calm down. Please do not be under the false impression that I am standing here today preaching this message from some kind of solid spiritual ground that never wavers. Oh no, quite the opposite. It is a fact of being human that we experience these waves and waves and waves of thoughts and emotions and stressors and aggravations and grief and loss, small-minded pettiness, large-scale evil. And some days, some weeks, I'm feeling a little seasick from everything. This week was a perfect storm of destabilization for me. There was more work than was possible in the midst of these waves of emotion in my leave-taking from River Road. I had house guests twice. I had family drama with my mother. I had two, not one, but two strangely fervent and weird fights with my spouse. I had body fatigue. I had general outrage about what was happening in the Capitol and the White House, just for starters. I managed to find my spiritual ground several times, I did, only to shift off again, wildly off course, when the next wave flowed in. And gradually, I just lost my resilience. Last night, it was kind of a puddle of sorrow, of tiredness from overexertion, of edgy frustration at all the things I can't control. As if I actually could have controlled those things if I had just done a little more skillful spiritual practice. The reality is that this kind of mindful surfing doesn't always work. And you get rolled under into the sand, face down. After that, sometimes you just have to fold them. So last night I cried for about 5 minutes. I couldn't even tell you all the reasons why. And then I just went to bed and went to sleep, and I gave up. We are living in times that are sending these hourly and daily shocks to our progressive systems. We are witnessing the dismantling of the liberal state. It's a time of seismic shifts in the political environment, and these calls to do justice are relentless. I am actually a person answering such a call because I'm deciding to return to full-time community organizing on March 1st. I believe that the stakes are high, and those who can lead, which is all of us, should. And at the same time, I really believe I must bring my best, growing, transforming self. I believe that being comes before doing and influences every action that we take. And in the words of Angel Kyoto Williams, love and justice are not two. Without inner change, there can be no outer change. And without collective change, no change really matters. There are just any number of ways that we can cultivate inner awareness or mindfulness, or what I would term ongoing liberation from my neuroses, fears, and worst impulses. And so I'm not here today to make a case for some particular path of practices. However, I am convinced that these times especially are rigorous and that they will wear you down. If you are worn down repeatedly, you will fray. Your physical and your mental health will suffer You may become a puddle on any given night. Your brain will go into overdrive. It will kidnap your kind heart, and it will start to engineer the train of your life. It will become the engineer. You will drive your spouse and your parents and your friends to gnash their teeth in your presence. And then you will create more suffering for others and for yourself. You will start to note that your colleagues and your children start to mysteriously disappear when they see you coming. The external world will increasingly drive you wild, and these waves of outrage and anxiety and disbelief will crash upon your shores. It is not pretty. It will bring you down. There is a way out of this mess, and for me, it has a name: practice. When I say spiritual ground, I mean the center that you have to keep remembering to create for yourself, that feels embodied, that feels rooted in what is, aware of all that is happening. It is not necessarily comfortable. In fact, I find it incredibly edgy repeatedly, but it is real, and that is a tremendous start. As mentioned already, this is not something that you achieve and then you just maintain in some kind of perfect stasis. I find myself seeking ground many times daily, course correcting, recalculating, recalibrating, and sometimes just simply giving up to go to sleep, to begin again in love. When I want to be my best self, I practice. When I see that I am so clearly being my worst self, I practice. When I have no idea what is happening, I inquire inward and I practice. And I do all this through my body, my breath, yoga, nature, movement. For me, these are powerful portals that lead into my inner awareness. You could have your own pathway. You can develop your own toolbox. You can explore and find them. Everyone has this capacity, this ability to learn ways to grow. One favorite of mine is coloring. Yes, I am one of those people with adult coloring books. And if you look on the cover of our order of service today, you'll find the mandala that 2 weeks ago I just sat down and was fixated on completing. It is meant to indicate the North Star in the center, and it shows the Big Dipper in 4 different seasons: spring, summer, winter, fall. And as I colored, and it took me 2 sittings of about 45 minutes to an hour each, I kept remembering in my body what it is to find the North Star, to remember that there are seasons, and that I may be in the season of wild chicken and I may not be forever, and that things will shift and transform. I color so that I can remember my true home. My vision of doing justice begins from this, that our inner state matters in everything we do. And recently I came across a passage by David White that so summed up my daily approach to spiritual practice. It's in his book, Consolations, where he takes a couple of pages and explores one particular word. And the word that he is exploring for this reading is besieged. Besieged. So I will quote at length because he describes so much so well. Conscious or unconscious, we are surrounded not only by the vicissitudes of a difficult world, but even more by those of our own making. If the world will not go away, then the great discipline seems to be the ability to make an identity that can live in the midst of everything without feeling beset. Being besieged asks us to begin the day not with a to-do list, but a not to-do list. Not with a to-do list, but a not to-do list. It allows us to re-see ourselves, to recenter the world as if for the first time. We give ourselves and our accomplishments, our ambitions, our over-described hopes away in order to see what form they return back to us. Creating a state of aloneness in the besieged every day may be one of the bravest things individual people can do for themselves. In the midst of everything, to be besieged, but beautifully, because we have a place to stand in the people and in the places, in the perplexities that we have grown to love. I think that place to stand is spiritual ground. Whether you are at ease within your true home of human spirit, whether you feel edgy or lost or despairing or in grief, whether you find that you are connecting to this vast transcendent spirit that guides you, or you notice that you are embedded as an individual in the interconnective tissue of beloved community. We need to cultivate this inner identity of ease in our aloneness, and at the same time discover our deep connection to the web of all existence, of all creatures and humans, and this resilience of created community. There is a Unitarian Universalist Association definition of beloved community that asserts, beloved community is not some future we may never see. It is already here, now. Many are not aware that the term was originally coined by Josiah Royce. He was an American philosopher who wrote about what was required to live in his own era of tumultuous change, the late 1800s in the United States. And in words that are wise and true for our time, he said, when one cannot find the beloved community, she needs to take steps to create it. And if there is not evidence of such a community, then the rule to live by, and he puts this in caps, is to act so as to hasten its coming. To act so as to hasten its coming. And then Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Ella Baker and so many in the U.S. Southern freedom struggle used this phrase in the 50s, 60s, and beyond to capture the creative energy and prophetic imagination that are required to make a new world. Dr. King's vision was this: a radical redefinition of our relationships, where the end is the creation of the beloved community, capitalized. A type of love that can transform opponents into friends. And he saw this beloved community as not limited to racial justice or certain issues or the organizing of movements or strategy and tactics. He said it also requires an unwavering commitment to inner change, combined with this desire to create collectives of change agents that are practicing fierce love. As Dr. King put it, a willingness to go to any length to restore community. How can we go to any length to restore if we have not restored ourselves? This is where we might gain hope in this fractured moment of history, taking the long view, long, staying steady in this daily course correction of the tumultuous inner life, joyful in the privilege of joining with other hearts and minds to make change. My own hope is in the building of movements. My own hope is in the connection of community. It is also in the chance I have each day to begin again in love. Thank the Goddess that I have that chance, that I can just leave certain days in the rearview mirror and say, whew, recalculating. When I commit with self-compassion to bring my messy, chaotic self to center, time and time again, it also gives me hope. I am humbled by all I cannot see, by what I will never know. And I'm also amazed at how much power I do have to transform myself and in the communities of practice where I travel. We are the beloved community now, making our way, forgiving ourselves, forgiving each other, doing all we can do to bring our best selves, time and time again, maybe even when we are the most weary. And from where I stand, you look beautiful. Thank you, beloved community.